Hi, my name is Yamina Idris Chaudhry, and today I'll be talking a little about my reflections on the legacy of Ida B. Wells Barnett. This is a little overview of my presentation today. I'll begin with a summary of Mrs. Ida B. Wells' early life. Next, I'll briefly discuss some of the social issues she tackled through her activism, followed by some of her major contributions to society and social justice, and finally a reflection on how she increased my understanding of Black women's activism. Biography. So here I'll be talking a little bit about Mrs. Wells' birth and upbringing in the mid to late 1800s. So these are some family photos of Mrs. Ida B. Wells Barnett. On the right, there's a photo of Mrs. Ida B. Wells in Chicago in 1909 with her children, Charles, Herman, Ida, and Alfreda. And on the left is a photo of Ida B. Wells' full family. She was born on July 16th, 1862 in Holly Springs, and she passed away on March 25th, 1931. These are some of the issues addressed by Mrs. Ida B. Wells. So I wanted to begin discussing some of her contributions to society through her activism by talking about the issues she talked about. And so those are anti-lynching and her anti-lynching campaign made through her journalism, as well as the fight for Black women's right to vote through her Black women's suffragist movement. Major contributions. So next I'll discuss the major contributions of Ida B. Wells' work. First, we have anti-lynching activism, which is the first major contribution of Ida B. Wells' activism that I wanted to touch on. Ida B. Wells' anti-lynching editorials in Black newspapers helped pave the way for the work of the Black press because it established the Black press as a source of truth and social mobilization, despite what the white media may have chosen to or not to report. And so I felt this was most eloquently illustrated through Paula Giddings' words, who wrote that in When and Where I Enter, that Ida B. Wells' anti-lynching campaign had not only helped to launch the modern civil rights movement, but it had brought Black women into the forefront of the struggle for Black and women's rights. And so this shows how the work that she did was not only for just Black women, but also it was both a racial and a gendered fight. And on the slide, I also have another quote from Paula Giddings that says, Ida Wells Barnett should have been pleased. Her anti-lynching campaign had not only helped to launch the modern civil rights movement, but it had brought Black women into the forefront of the struggle for Black and women's rights. The impact of Ms. Wells' journalism was so significant that it was palpable over 60 years later during the rape of Mrs. Recy Taylor and others through the visibility and platform that the Black press then offered to survivors of rape. The Black press picked up on these women's stories and tried to push cases forward by reporting on them. Where the white press ignored these cases, Black press allowed Black women to speak to sexual assault even when justice wasn't an option. And this is a photo of Southern Horrors, Lynch Law in all its phases by Mrs. Ida B. Wells. Next, I wanted to touch a little bit on Black women's suffrage. So Ida B. Wells also pushed for Black women's right to vote, and she did this mainly by making African American women a political voice, which she did in part through her journalism, which allowed Black women to be seen as more human and to kind of build off of each other with their ideas for how they'd achieve the right to vote. So next is a little about my understandings of Black women's activism, and I wanted to end with some of my personal reflections on Mrs. Ida B. Wells' legacy and how it has enhanced my understanding. So I think first, as we saw in the case of the rape of Mrs. Recy Taylor, Mrs. Ida B. Wells Barnett's contributions to journalism had long withstanding effects on the push for Black women's rights and ability to have their voices heard. And I feel that while Ida B. Wells helped get the ball rolling for Black women's rights, just as other Black women activists in this class, these contributions didn't occur in a vacuum. Instead, they were helpful to get the momentum going. And so some of the issues that she covered here, getting Black women the right to vote and anti-lynching, it just opened up the door for other Black women activists in the future to kind of follow in her path. All right, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video provided some insight into the life and legacy of Miss Ida B. Wells Barnett and allowed others to appreciate her contributions as I did when learning about her. And here are my credits for the photos and credits for the text. Thank you so much.